Our guest tonight is World Wrestling Network and Progress Atlas champion Matt Riddle. How you doing, man?
I'm pretty good, bro. How you doing?
I can't complain. We got you on the line, bro. I'm very excited. At Evolve, yeah, I know, I'm blowing smoke up your ass already. Just get ready for it. It's going to be all day. It's going to get ugly.
Well, I love it.
Thank you. At Evolve 84 on May 20th, you take on Kyle O'Reilly for the WWN Championship on FlowSlam.tv in a highly anticipated matchup. What are your thoughts on O'Reilly? And as a former UFC fighter, how are you preparing for his MMA-inspired style?
You know, I've wrestled Kyle once, or actually twice before. Once at Bola in PWG, and then actually again just this past weekend in Ireland. But we really, every time we get in the ring together, it gets pretty serious, you know. He has a really good, hard-hitting MMA style pro wrestling, and I do too. And when we mix it up, it's really good. It's one of the more organic matchups I have right now in the world of professional wrestling, just because of his knowledge in MMA and my knowledge in MMA. It really makes, like, I'll be honest, the other night the crowd, when they were just, it was crazy. We killed it. We killed it at Bola, and we're going to kill it again, you know, for Evolve. It's just, me and Kyle have great chemistry, and whenever we get in the ring together, it's fireworks.
If you successfully retain the title against O'Reilly, you will square off against Jeff Cobb at Evolve 85 the following day, May 21st. Cobb has a much different style than O'Reilly, so how do you prepare for two completely opposite matches over just 2 days?
Well, I feel like the match with O'Reilly, we can go tit for tat with the jiu-jitsu and the striking, while with Jeff Cobb, I can get him in the submission grappling and the striking aspect, but he kind of beats me in the wrestling and the slams. So, you know, I think that's just how the matchup plays out. You know, just if you have like a wrestler versus striker, you know, I think when you got me and Jeff Cobb, he's more the Chael Sonnen and I'm more the Anderson Silva in that contest. And I think that's how it'll go down. I think that's the story we'll tell. You know, him trying to out-wrestle me and hold me down and beat me up, and me getting away, firing up on him, and, just going hard. And the good thing about Cobb is he's big. He can take a beating. I can always take a beating. So, you know, I think this match with Cobb is going to be this one's going to be a real treat. We've wrestled a couple times before, but they've been really quick matches, and he's beaten me twice. Jeff Cobb's one of the only men I haven't beaten on the Indies. So I'm really looking forward to locking it up and hopefully getting a W. Especially if I don't have I don't want to lose my belt to Cobb, you know, if I still have it.
Yeah, you sound so, I believe you. When you talk, I believe you.
You'll have it.
Yeah, you'll have it. We're confident. Mike Chiari?
I'm pretty confident.
You should be, because you became the first ever WWN champion in Orlando during WrestleMania weekend. You represent all the companies under that WWN Live umbrella. But having been in the business for only a couple years at this point, does it at all surprise you that you've reached this level so quickly, or did you always expect to catch on immediately and have this type of meteoric rise?
Well, you know, when I first started wrestling, you know, just kind of like when I first started doing MMA, I got to the UFC within like 8 months of training like jiu-jitsu and like kickboxing. So when I started training pro wrestling, I thought I was going to, you know, get to the WWE in like 6 or 8 months, you know. So when that didn't happen, you know, I got to try out and did all that. But when I realized what all went into pro wrestling, and it didn't matter how good you looked or how good you can wrestle or sell or anything, it's like you have to be great at everything. You know, you can't just be great in the ring. You got to be great on the mic. You gotta be real. You know, and I know that sounds funny with pro wrestling, but in a sense, you have to be real. You have to connect with people. You have to like engage people. You know, and get them involved one way or another, either watching it, cheering, booing you, whatever it is. You know, that's my job, to get the crowd up and, you know, So wrestling was just a lot harder, and I didn't realize. Because I know it sounds like, I'm saying like it took forever for me to get to this point, but compared to MMA, it really, it did take me a lot longer. It took me probably a little over 2 years or a little under 2 years wrestling on the indies to get where I'm at. But, I mean, I think it also comes to the matchups I had, with Evolve and other companies. And I think a lot of promoters saw the value in me and saw the potential in me. And I think that's why I got to where I am, because of companies like PWG, Evolve, Progress, Beyond Wrestling, and those are probably the big ones that really gave me a good push and really made my name worth something on the indies,
Brandon Gavin, next question.
Well, there's been a lot of discussion recently about hits to the head, especially headbutts, after Katsuyori Shibata's injury. What are your thoughts on attempting to limit headshots? Is this just the nature of high-impact sports, or should there be more actions taken to make MMA and pro wrestling safer?
Well, I'll tell you this. This is how I look at it. You should never shoot headbutt somebody or headbutt somebody full on. I don't like diving headbutts. I don't see the purpose, because in real life I would never jump off a building or jump off a porch and headbutt you. That's like guaranteed brain damage. And for some reason in wrestling, it's like, that's a good move. But, and then even with the Shibata case, even when I wrestled Shibata, I go, the one thing, I was like, we can do whatever. I'm like, no headbutts. I'm really against, brain damage. I know I fought in the UFC, but at the same time, if you watched a lot of my fights in the UFC, I had a good record. I'm 10-3 overall in MMA. 9-3 in the UFC, regardless of no contest. And most of the time, I left fights without a scratch. Don't get me wrong, I had a couple fights where, I chose to slug it out and try to get fight of the night. But that was probably only, 2 or 3 times I did that out of my 12 fights, I know guys that every time they fight like that. And even when it comes to wrestling, I even see some of my friends doing some of the more reckless things, and I'm like, guys, I mean, I know you're 22, 25 right now, and you're like, oh, I'm fine. I can shoot headbutt people and take a chair shot. But I'm like, shit adds up, And by the time you're my age, 31, you're gonna be rocked, and then by the time you're 40 or 35, you're gonna be over, So in my opinion, and if you ask anybody I wrestle, if I hit them hard in the face, I've never hit anybody. Actually, I take that back. I hit one person. I hit Drew Galloway in the face. I kicked him in the chest, and my foot split and caught him in the chin. But that was an accident. And I don't kick anybody hard in the head. I don't knee anybody hard in the head. I form, I hit everybody hard. And I do hit people hard, but I hit them in safe spots so you don't get brain damage. You might have a bloody chest or a bruised shoulder or something like that, or bruised arms. But you'll never be wow, I saw a bright light because you hit me. Because I wouldn't do that. I would never do that to somebody. My job is to keep my opponent safe and entertain the crowd.
Mike Chiara, next question.
Yeah, well, you often hear how tough it is to go from professional wrestling to MMA, with CM Punk obviously being the prime example of that. But for you, what are some of the biggest challenges that you've faced in making that transition from MMA to pro wrestling?
Well, in MMA and jiu-jitsu, even amateur wrestling, you're not working with people, you're working against them. You're setting them up to catch them in the trap, or knock them out or something like that. And you hide your strikes, you hide your submissions, you hide your takedowns, you use setups so nobody sees what you're doing, you know what I'm saying? Well, in pro wrestling, every strike, I telegraph. Every takedown, I telegraph. Every throw, I let the crowd know I'm about to go for the throw. Very rarely is it out of nowhere. When it is, it's usually a comeback and then there you go. Because the thing is in wrestling, when you're entertaining a crowd of 2,000 people or even 700 people, they're live. There's no cameras. There's cameras, but there's no instant replay, especially on the indies. And even for people that are live at the show, you had to make things larger than life so they can actually see it firsthand. So that was one of the hardest things for me. And then the second hardest thing was selling. Just because, when you fight and you get punched in the face, even if you're hurt, you don't show it. Well, in pro wrestling, you barely get touched, and you got to show a lot. you know?
BG, next question.
I read an article you conducted recently discussing your interactions with fans, taking pictures, selling shirts, hanging out with them after matches. Over the years, you hear a lot of stories about wrestlers not embracing fans in this manner, or perhaps feeling bothered by fans. Is this something that's just part of your personality, or did someone advise you on how to deal with the fans?
You know, even when I fought in the UFC, I mean, I wasn't allowed to sell merch or do anything like that. But when I fought in the UFC, what I would do is usually I'd get tickets. You know, you fight, they give you tickets. And what I would do is I'd go into the crowd and sit in the crowd and watch the rest of the fights. And a lot of times I'd end up taking pictures and signing people's UFC books and doing all that. And I didn't care if I got any money or anything. I was just there enjoying the fights, enjoying my time, and having fun, you know. And not that I feel like I owe it to anybody, but I was just enjoying myself. And if you come up to me and ask me for a picture, an autograph or something, who am I to say no, you know? And that's the same thing with wrestling. A lot of times, like, I go out to my merch table during shows, and I feel like I've heard old-timers don't like that because they find it disrespectful. But I'll tell you this, I hate being in the back of a locker room when all my friends are wrestling and I hear exciting matches going on, and I can't see shit because I'm in the back, you know? And I'd rather go out to my merch table, hang out with the fans, and watch the wrestling, you know, right at my merch table, and usually get like not a front row seat, but I'm usually standing in the back, and I can see over all the people, and I got like a great bird's eye view of the action. So, you know, I think I've always I don't think I go out of my way to hang out with fans, but like, you know, it's the same thing as like if I'm hanging out with the fans and like someone's like, hey, you want to go get a drink? And I'm already probably going to go out and get a drink. I'll probably go get a drink with them. You know, I don't care. But I've also seen other wrestlers that are like, I'm not hanging out with that mark, you know, and you're like, whoa, bro, like we're all marks, like we wrestle, like, but I think, I don't know, maybe one day I'll be like, I hate these guys, but right now I love the fans, you know, they seem to love me, and I enjoy their company, and I enjoy watching wrestling, so I feel like that's why I get along with so many people, not just in wrestling, but on the indies, because I feel like we're all like the same person, we're all like, most of us are like, 16 to like 35, and we love wrestling. We love like hard-hitting wrestling, and yeah, it's just we just have a lot in common. It's just that demographic, you know, and I feel like that's why I relate to them too. It's like I get along with everybody in the crowds, you know. It's not like I'm out of place. It feels like home.
Well, you mentioned WWE earlier, and they've had interest in you in the past. Would you be open to working with the company in the future? And what are some of your goals that you'd like to accomplish before eventually making that leap to WWE?
Yeah, like I think, like, you know, that I hear people hear me say like, oh, I don't want to go to WWE, and it's like I just don't want to go to WWE this second. I feel like they have so much talent on their roster, and they got so much going on. I'm not saying things are going to change, but right now I'm doing great things on the indies. I'm building my reputation. I'm getting to work the style I want to work 100%. Nobody's really telling me what to do or how to do it. I'm doing it my way. And I feel like if I went to the WWE, like if I already went or if I went now, it would be a big deal, but it wouldn't be as big of a deal. You know, and I think if I can accomplish a couple more things, like right now I'm doing great, like winning tournaments, obtaining titles, you know, defending titles, and wrestling all over the world. But at the same time, I feel like there's a couple things on the bucket list before, like I have to do before I go to the WWE. You know what I'm saying? Like I would say, like I would love to wrestle for New Japan, or at least wrestle in Japan, like, you know, whatever promotion, you know, but. Ideally, it'd be New Japan. There's the big boys over there. And, yeah, honestly, if I could be in Zack Saber's situation right now, I would like to be in that situation.
What do you mean by that?
Because Zack Saber wrestles for New Japan, he wrestles for Evolve, he wrestles for PWG. He basically wrestles all the indies I wrestle, except for he also wrestles New Japan.
Have you been contacted by New Japan? Have you shown them interest, or what's the deal there?
Well, Well, I'm definitely interested, and I don't know. I haven't talked to them directly. I've run into some of the office, at other shows like Rev Pro shows and PWG shows. We have a lot of New Japan talent work, both those shows. And right now, that's kind of how I worked my way into New Japan. That's where I got my match with Shibata was at Rev Pro. And coming up, I don't think I can announce it yet, but coming up, I'm wrestling another big name from New Japan for Rev Pro. And I heard the office is going to be there. So, if hopefully they like what they see and they say something, if not, no biggie. I'm doing great things, but, ideally, I think for the resume, checking off New Japan is a big deal. And I think if I could do that, do what I'm doing now in the Indies for probably another year or 2 or 3, depending, even 5, I think that would be fine, and then possibly go into the WWE where, when I make my debut, it's a big deal. I don't do NXT. I go right to the big show, and that's my goal. Nothing wrong with NXT or doing all that, but my goal is to, I fought in the UFC. I'm doing the indie scene of wrestling. I'm doing all that. I fought, it's just, I feel like the route I'm going on, the more experience I have, and the more credentials I have going into that meeting or going into that, situation with the WWE, I think the better, The more name value I have, the better. The more undeniable I am, the better, because then I can get what I want, Not necessarily what I want, but, yeah, get what I want. No, that's exactly what I mean, get what I want. Yeah.
Mike Young?
Well, it's no secret that obviously WWE's been combing the independent scene, looking for that top talent. You have to be firmly on their radar, and it has to be only a matter of time before you get a contract offer of some kind. But when that time comes, is there anything that concerns you about potentially wrestling for WWE? Anything like a concern about how you would fit in or anything in that respect?
Yeah, that's exactly why I wouldn't want to go there this second, unless they had a great storyline for me and everything ready to go and they were ready to push me the second I got there, which wouldn't be the case. That's why I would rather, work other places and get the experience I need. Also, I feel like there's just too many people, and, I've always been told this. When you start training, when you start wrestling, when you start fighting, when you start doing anything, your stopwatch starts, and eventually you're going to turn that stopwatch off and it doesn't go back on. It's over. Your time's up. And I feel like on the indies, the amount I work and the people I work with and the experiences I have, I feel like I learn 10 times as much as I would in the WWE. Just because I feel like I get more attention, I get more time, I get put in more positions where there's more pressure on me because I'm holding the whole show. Well, I feel like in WWE I would just be a pawn. I'd just be a little part of the whole show because that's what it would be. Because it's such a big production. It's just I think honestly right now I'm a little too immature to go there right now, and I think a couple more years doing what I'm doing, getting more street cred and everything else, will just make me more valuable and make the time even better.
Brandon Gavin, final question.
With your MMA skills, do other wrestlers treat you differently backstage or in matches? Do you find that some are more timid when they work with you or perhaps even try to step up to challenge you in the ring?
Yeah, I would say both. I've had guys, I've had guys come up to me like, oh, I can fight, I can do this. And I'm like, okay, then let's not call anything and let's just go out there and fight, and see what happens. And then they're like, oh, but wait, and I'll be like, exactly. It's like, don't just come here, tell me you can fight and get in the fucking ring with me. Sorry, I shouldn't be swearing. I apologize.
No, believe me, you can say whatever you want. We are the
more the merrier.
Yeah, we are the embodiment of class. Okay. I know that. I know you feel the class oozing from us, but don't worry.
Know what yes, I'm just making sure, but. Yeah, I do get treated a little differently in the locker room because they know what I'm capable of. People look up that knockout from 8 years ago and they just see me shatter a dude's jaw and they're like, yeah, we probably shouldn't piss him off, But at the same time, you've talked to me even in this 23 minutes and you can probably tell just by the sound of my voice, it's like I'm a pretty calm guy and it takes a lot to really push me over the edge, you know? And I love pro wrestling, and the last thing I'd want to do is jeopardize my future by hurting anybody else, you know? So, like I said, like, I hit hard when I'm in the ring. I slam people hard. I do everything real. But, like, I don't hurt people. I'll never, like, really seriously hurt anybody. You might have some bruises. You might need to, like, take an ice bath. But other than that, you'll be fine.
Well, another huge thank you to our guest tonight, Matt Riddle. Catch him stealing the show at Evolve 84 and 85, available on flowslam.tv. Tell the fans where else they can support you, man.
You know, man, you can find me on Twitter at Super King of Bros, and you can find me on Instagram on Riddle Bro. And, you know, I would pump the Facebook, but I'm already maxed out on friends, and I feel like all my friends that I have are like all MMA fans, and they don't like pro wrestling. Like, the only people that like my pro wrestling stuff on Facebook is like my mom. So I don't know. Or maybe I have to like re-delete my friends and like, because I got like 2,000 requests, but I really don't use the Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Hit me up. If you message me, I'll get right back to you usually. You know, it takes me maybe a couple days, but I try to stay on top of it, you know.
Well, we really appreciate it. Another huge thank you to Matt Riddle. Good luck moving forward, sir.
Thanks, bro. I appreciate it.